What's going on, everybody? This is KABF 88.3 Occupy Little Rock Radio on our new hour. And I think everybody's mic is hot. Go ahead and say something.
Okay. Maybe not. Oh, there it is. That is.
There we go.
Okay.
We're good.
Alright, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. Hang on a sec. Alright. If you're just joining us, this is Occupy Little Rock Radio on our new super cool broadcast time. It's 7 p.m. and we're sure that everybody is in their car listening to us right now. So I'd like to open up this show with a prayer. I'm not a very religious man, but I do admit that there is such a thing called religion. And here's what I'd like to say. You can please close your eyes and join hands with your families and as I pray to the universe here. So, dear Buddha and Jesus and Moses and God, wherever she is, if you're out there, and to Mother Nature and to
Father Time.
And to Father Time, what the hell is going on in the world today? That's what I want to know. Please deliver an answer unto me and my good friends here at KABF, and by that I mean Mel, our off-color commentator, Chris Nielsen, and Caitlin Lott. Woo!
Yeah!
Here we are, we're all here. Because we don't know what is going on. We are just trying to make sense of it. Do you know what's going on? Also in the studio, we have Anna Makagonova and Misha Makagonov.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Arf.
And they're excited. Misha is especially excited. So, the opening track here is Talking Heads, requested by Mel. This is Life During Wartime. I don't know why you picked that track.
It just speaks to me.
So,
That's actually the first Talking Heads song that I was ever really aware of. Simply because it was on the Times Square soundtrack, which is an obscure movie probably not a lot of people have heard of. Come out, I want to say 78 or 79. And it was a little bit ahead of its time because it was actually a movie that was concerning two homeless chicks that lived together. You got to look it up, and if you try to buy the darn thing, it's so expensive these days, which is one reason I don't own a copy of it right now. But it was
it's an instant classic. I mean, when you look at it, it is a classic.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cult film at this point.
cool. Times Square?
Yep.
Right on. So if you're at home, you got nothing to do tonight, no date, order a pizza, and watch Times Square.
If nothing else, the soundtrack is just awesome because it's got Talking Heads and the Cars and just all kinds of different people when the new wave movement was first starting to rear its ugly head before it got all commercialized and you couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with Duran Duran.
Duran Squared.
So let's get down to some business here. We've got what will hopefully be an interesting show for you today. We're supposed to have a caller in the next 8 to 10 minutes. Is this right?
Yeah, this is Dan Johnson from Panda.
Talk into the mic, sir.
I'm going to go ahead.
There we go.
It's Dan Johnson from Panda, and he and a few others have gone up against People's Against
Talk
NDA.
more directly into the microphone. Hey, yeah, so if you guys hear feedback, it's because we can't turn off the speakers that are in the room with the microphones.
You say this like this is some sort of,
Yeah, because that makes sense. I'm sorry, please tell us about Panda. What is Panda Bears?
No, Panda as People Against NDAA.
Talk really into the microphone.
I am, dude, I do not like to over...
Now I can hear you.
we just want to hear
That's
you.
dynamic. Let's overdrive
Anyway,
it.
Panda is People's Against NDAA 2013 and 2012. Both of them are, both of the NDAA acts were signed into law, and Dan Johnson and a few others decided to go ahead and make this a real serious issue. NDAA in the past was and still is a very, very central, it's the National Defense Authorization Act that has been held up since World War II. And
they just keep adding nasty little things into it.
They keep adding on more and more imperial power to the presidency. And even though a president may not necessarily want to exercise it, any president can, such as President Cheney.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
Uncle Sneer.
Uncle Sneer, yes.
Yeah, so for those of you that are not privy to NDAA and why there are some people, including the ACLU, the last frontier, them and the EFF are like some of the last people actually fighting to preserve freedom. EFF being Electronic Foundation Frontier, is that right?
Yes.
Check it out. Anyway, so what people are not happy about with the NDAA is Section 1032, which describes requirement for military custody. What are you doing?
One of the monitors is working.
You just turned me off.
Yeah, you turn it off.
Chris is over here messing with the board.
It's messing with the monitors, that's what we're having.
I don't know what to do.
Need new duct tape.
Okay, so what's
So
the
Section 1032 is talking about requirements for military custody. So I could read it to you word for word here. I'm going to just find the section in here in particular. Okay, United States citizens. It says the requirement to detain a person in military custody under this section does not extend to the United States. So, two things, first of all. Section 1032 is explaining how anybody in the United States can be detained without a trial, without notifying a family, without the person contacting an attorney. You can basically be detained indefinitely.
You can be disappeared.
Right.
You
and
can-
this is for being suspected of terrorist activity or being associated with a suspected terrorist group.
And so what it says is, regarding United States citizens, the requirement to detain a person in military custody under this section does not extend. Meaning, you are not required to detain an American citizen. It does not say, this section does not apply to American citizens in any fashion whatsoever. It says you are not required to detain American citizens, which means, like, you can.
Yeah.
You're just not necessarily...
You don't have to, but
yeah,
you can.
you don't have to, but you can. So, in the next 5 minutes or so, we're looking forward to hearing from the founder of Panda, Dan Johnson, People Against NDAA. So, this goes all the way back to, was it the end of last year? Or was it the end of 2011?
It's the end of 2011, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
It was, yes, to authorize appropriations for 2012. So this is the end of 2011. So we're harping on this for almost 2 years now. You know, we're still concerned about it.
And part of the you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong.
Speak
Chris.
into the microphone.
Part of the 2011 version of NDAA was struck down by court, but then when they re-upped it in 2012, they added it back in. So here we are again, guys.
Yeah, we're basically getting a straight. They're re-upping everything every time the court strikes it down. They adjust the language so that we have to go back and fight it again. The ACLU has actually spent well over something on the order of about $17 million over the past 40 years, trying to literally have the process of the NDAA stopped. There was after Vietnam, and it finished up, a lot of the volunteers with the ACLU decided to go ahead and go after NDAA because we did not necessarily need it. And we've pretty much had to, as far as those that have been longtime activists against the NDAA, it has been an uphill battle because every time an executive order comes down, we have to go and fight it. And it's really rough. There has always been a split amongst the ACLU to try to how best to handle the battle against imperial rule. We don't want our president to become chancellor.
Well, and if you you lose. That was a Hitler reference. First one to make a Hitler reference loses.
I know, right?
Okay, how about Emperor?
I'm cool with that. Well, and if you don't believe that we're not headed toward imperialism as opposed to democracy, the voice of the people, you can watch what's going on in our country just on one single subject right now. Everybody in this country is screaming their heads off. Do not bomb Syria. What do you see on the news? Over and over and over. All the reasons why we must bomb Syria.
Yeah, right now we have a record low approval rating for Congress, but Congress's approval rating is higher than the approval rating of invading Syria.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they are going to keep pushing it. They're going to keep pushing it. If you remember back to the first Gulf War, when Iraq went into Kuwait, 90% of the people in the United States of America had no idea a country named Kuwait existed.
Right. Yeah, I had no idea.
And when the real blitzkrieg, and yes, I did it too, started on the media, the whole project of convincing America how seriously we needed to defend this poor little country, all of a sudden, public opinion was swayed into the opposite direction, and there we are with yet another coalition of the willing. And it always seems so odd to me that the coalition of the willing always boils down to us doing the fighting.
Right.
Every time.
I saw a funny quote about the whole concept with Syria gassing the children being a terrible thing, and the quote was, in Syria they gas their children to death. In America we deprive them of health care. So, and instead give that money to subsidize corporations and corporate welfare. So are we angry about how their children die so quickly? Or
do we need to bomb Exxon?
Oh man, Matthew, you keep doing this like...
It popped into my head. The mouth it comes.
I know, you just make sense a lot, and it really pisses me off. I mean, this logic thing is just like, it's really not working out.
Every time I'm watching the TV and I see, quote unquote, my president up there telling me how badly we need to go in and John Kerry with a straight face.
Right, and the continuous,
here we go.
There.
This could be our call. Either way, hey, if you want to call in at any point in time, the phone lines are open. 501-433-0088. Let's take this call. Occupy Little Rock Radio, you're live on air.
This is Dan, your guest.
Hey!
Dan, hey! Thanks for calling in, man. How are you doing today?
I'm not doing too bad, yourself?
Cool, great. Excited to be here. Excited to have you on the show. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Bowling Green, Ohio.
What's the weather like this time of the year in Bowling Green, Ohio?
Muggy, dripping buckets of sweat all over the floor.
Oh.
Hot.
That sounds about like here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty similar
Call
here.
us with our weather.
So, Dan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. For those of you that are just tuning in, this is KABF 88.3, the voice of the people. This is Occupy Little Rock Radio, and we have Dan Johnson of PANDA, People Against NDAA, live on air right now. Dan, can you tell us really quickly before we get to talking where people can find on the internet what is PANDA, and sort of tune into what you guys are doing? Do you have a website?
Absolutely. PANDA is, as you mentioned, People Against the NDAA. We're the largest anti-NDA organization in the nation, with over 30 state teams across the country and having 22 pieces of legislation introduced this year alone, along with defeating 3 amendments to it in the Senate this past year. They can find us online at pandaunite.org. That's Panda spelled just like your fuzzy little bear at home. pandaunite.org, facebook.com/pandaunite, and twitter.com/pandaunite. Find us online at those 3 places.
Awesome. So, to kick this off, I want to ask you a question. So the NDAA appropriates money towards the military and the government. Why would people be against defending America? Why would people be against giving money to the military to spread democracy and protect our people at home?
Well, whether or not that's inherently a good thing or constitutional to have a standing army in the first place is beyond the scope of this discussion. but the specific portion of the NDAA that we oppose are in the 2012 NDAA, and it's become kind of known for this. Sections 10.2.1 and 10.2.2. In a nutshell, these sections do exactly what we did in 1942, except it's not just for the Japanese Americans anymore. They allow for the indefinite detention of any person, including American citizens, anywhere in the world, including the United States, without a charge and without a trial, and the application of the laws of war to American soil, making America a battlefield and giving the military final jurisdiction if and when they want it.
But, okay, so how are we supposed to fight a war on terror if we can't just detain people and bring them in for questioning?
First of all, it's important to understand this is military detaining, not a average police taking you to jail and giving you a trial. There are a few problems with just detaining someone off the street and under the military's jurisdiction. Number one is efficiency. Let's say there actually is a such thing as terrorism, and we do need to fight this quote-unquote war on an emotional reaction to terror. Then, look at efficiency. In military tribunals and military courts, we have prosecuted 30. And I mean 30 people. Versus in civilian courts for terrorism-related offenses, we have tried and prosecuted over 400 people. So to say that the military is better for efficiency is a silly argument, and that was very easily debunked by two four-star Marine generals in a New York Times editorial titled Guantanamo Forever. But another thing beyond that to understand is the danger of freedom. The indefinite detention does not require a trial. It does not even require a charge. And it is akin to say that you are about to murder someone. It's not that you did. It's not that it's going to be proven in a court of law. But someone just says you were about to murder someone.
We think you're thinking about it.
And it goes even further than that, because they don't want to say anything that you've done and just throw you in jail for the heck of it. The only requirement they have to, even in their conscience, prove is that you've committed a belligerent act. And since you're never going to be brought to court, you're never going to be given a trial, then being called anything could get you militarily detained, because they never have to prove it in a court of law. You're just sitting in a military base, such as Guantanamo Bay or such as Fort Leavenworth, sitting somewhere, and you have no charge and you have no trial, and your constitutional protections are essentially stripped from you. And that's extremely dangerous to engage in free crime.
So, do you think the Constitution is just as important today as it was, almost 150, 200 years ago when they wrote it?
Absolutely. Here's why. For a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a prevailing myth out there that the Constitution is just a set of, it's more a set of guidelines, as they would say in Caribbean. It's more like a set of guidelines, more like a parent code. And we kind of follow it when we want to, we kind of don't when we don't. But in reality, what the Constitution was supposed to do is two things: limit and separate power, and protect the rights of its people. And if we ignore the Constitution, and particularly the Bill of Rights, then what we have done is that we have essentially ignored the very purpose of government. Right. Government is there to protect the rights of the people. Our Declaration of Independence says this much. Our Declaration of Independence states that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For these reasons, governments are to become permanent. The reason governments are created is to protect the rights of the people. And once we move away from that and the constitutional protection that the Bill of Rights gauges America, once we move away from that, and once we move toward giving government the absolute authority, and government being able to determine who is guilty and who is not. And that can change based on the administration. Because remember, under the 2012 NDAA detention provision, the president is the final arbiter. So if the president is Mitt Romney, or if the president is Barack Obama, they're probably going to have two different sets of enemies. And they could use this law on either of them, so it doesn't matter what ideology you hold. And it's important to also understand this has been used in the past in America twice. He ignored the Constitution, he ignored the Bill of Rights in 1862 under Abraham Lincoln, Proclamation 90. The proclamation said that to offend his purpose and also any person who is disloyal to North government placed under military jurisdiction the law of war. 80,000 Northerners, Lincoln executed several of them, and the Supreme Court found later that most of those men were released, but Lincoln had charged them. And then secondly, in 1942, Executive Order 9066, signed by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, says nothing about detention. That the law of war should be used in certain areas of the country. And we detained 120,000 Japanese Americans, which the Supreme Court approved of in 1942.
Hey Dan, you're breaking up just a little bit here.
Yeah. Anyway, between 120,000. And so it's important to understand that history repeats itself if we don't pay attention. And in the past, when we have disregarded the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, history has continued to repeat itself and to plunge our country into a sort of that's where the government is not fault.
Hey, you're breaking up, man. We're having a hard time hearing what you're saying here, Dan. It's not him, you
Can
think?
you hear me any better now, Saul?
Okay. Well,
It seems to come in and out, but either way, we definitely get what you're saying here. The last part was a little broken up, but it seems as though you were saying evil really never sleeps, so it's sort of up to us, the people, to stay vigilant and make sure that our rights are not being trampled on. And first of all, it starts with awareness, and then second of all, it starts with action of some sort, depending on the circumstances.
And history repeats itself if we don't pay attention.
Totally. So hey, you got a question from Caitlin here in the studio, so she's gonna shout this on out to you here.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, since you've been so involved, have you actually seen, have you found any reference, I guess, to anyone being taken in from within the U.S.? I know we've had a lot of, they're labeling them cyber terrorists, and they say they've shut down Anonymous and all this. So I'm just wondering if you've heard anything like that.
And this is, am I coming through clear now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is what's dangerous, so dangerous about the detention provision, is we don't know, and we never will. The closest we know is in a case brought against the NDAA in federal court. One of the judges they went to in district court asked the government, have you detained anyone under the NDAA in violation of my injunction? And the government's answer, there was none. It was like, you ask your kid, hey, did you steal from the cookie jar? And he kind of stands there and goes, well, anyway, do you like french fries? That was pretty much the government's answer, and it would be hilarious if it weren't so extremely dangerous,
Right,
because that's
absolutely.
the government essentially admitting that they currently are holding someone in NDAA detention. We don't know who it is.
I do know that a journalist named Barrett Brown has been detained in prison for a year, without a trial at this point. And I'm wondering if he's one of these folks that has been detained because of the NDAA.
Actually, Barrett Brown's lucky
What?
because he's in civil.
Oh.
Okay.
He's not in military. Military detention is a whole other story. Ask Bradley Manning or Chelsea Manning. Military detention is a whole different story. So actually, got luck that he's only being detained without a trial civilly.
Yeah, I would bet that there are a lot of people being held, but that the only reason that even the military is trying some of these people is because we know about them.
Right. Exactly, because there's a public spotlight there.
Well, we've got all these people sitting down in Guantanamo that they're not even bothering to bring up on charges or anything. They're just sitting there in limbo. In fact, some of them have actually, I understand, have actually been cleared of any wrongdoing.
They're not just sitting in limbo, they're sitting with stomach tubes.
Yep.
Well, I would also have to highlight the fact that there are still a few people that are in military detention that we do know of from the 70s, and part of the reason why they still do the NDAA is because they do not want Leonard Peltier or a few others that are well known that are actually being officially detained militarily that do not have a voice, even though that they've been able to actually petition the president for pardon and or release. So technically, this NDAA is just a perpetuation of indefinite detention, such as people like Leonard Peltier.
So I want to give a quick shout out to anyone who's just tuning in. This is KABF 88.3, Voice of the People, and you're listening to Occupy Little Rock Radio. Again, we've got Dan Johnson of Panda here on the phone with us live from Oregon, talking about people against the NDAA. Ohio? Was it Ohio or Oregon, you
It's a
said?
little far away from Ohio, but I'll take it.
I thought, he said Oregon, didn't he? I thought you said Oregon.
No, it's Ohio.
Ohio.
It was Ohio?
Yeah.
It's the land of political hell where 2 months before the elections are over, there are endless political ads on TV and you want to drain your eyeballs in the nearest sewer. Yes,
So, yeah,
Ohio.
That sounds like Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, give a quick shout out again for your website for anyone who's just tuning in.
Absolutely. You can find us at Panda, that's spelled like the little fuzzy bear, PandaUnite.org, that's PandaUnite.org, Facebook.com/PandaUnite, Twitter.com/PandaUnite, and if you're really adventurous, you can check out YouTube.com/PandaUniteTV, see videos of citizens all across the country standing up for freedom.
Awesome.
Cool, man. So I'm checking out the website right now. It's looking pretty good. It says, in 2012, sections 1021 and 1022 authorizes the indefinite military detention without charge or trial of any person, including American citizens, applies the law of war to U.S. soil, making the United States legally a battlefield. So as a citizen, what can you do? What can I do? And what is Panda doing exactly? How do we fight this kind of thing?
So, imagine the corruption in government as a pyramid, where at the top you can say you've got banking syndicate or wherever you want to place the top. Just below them you have federal government, you have executive, judicial, and legislative branches, and you have state government, and you have the local government. Below that you have the local bureaucrats, sheriff, your police chief, like that. Local bureaucrats. Well, if you just walk to the top of that pyramid, you will have the same situation Egypt has and will continue to have for years until they get it. Egypt rose up against Hosni Mubarak and said, we don't want you in office, and got him out, but they went straight to the top. They didn't go through their provincial governors, they didn't go through their border governors, they didn't go through any of their local government officials. They went straight to the top, and they took him down. Well, who did they get? Ford, who is just as tyrannical, if not more tyrannical than Mubarak, because the people below him would not throw Morsi out. Well, now they've gone to the top again, and they've thrown Morsi out. Now who do they have? They have the military going through the street, and they have a military dictator in power, and they're going to keep running through this cycle until they point. You cannot go to the top. So to go to the top of the pyramid, somebody walks up that pyramid and places a new top on it. However, if you go to the bottom of the pyramid and you start taking bricks from the bottom and you start withdrawing sense from that power, that corruption, that's how you knock the pyramid over and take out the entire system. And so what we're working on here at Panda is we're going to the cities, we're going to the county commission, going to the city council, going to the county commission meeting one time, you'll find you're one of the only people there. Why? Because their citizens are not engaged with their government. It doesn't take many of them. 25, 30 people to change the local government's mind. So we go to state council, we go to the county commission, we go to sheriffs all across the country, and we say, I want you to withdraw consent from this law and not allow them to violate the rights of the people in your county or the people in your city, because you took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, and this violates the Constitution 14 ways to Sunday. That's the way Canada works, that's the way we have continually worked, and we've got several cities, counties, states where we've introduced legislation, or we have votes out in front of them, or we've gotten small little points in their county, several all across the country. And, however, one thing I would say to your listeners, that's the way Canada does it. But one of the reasons, and I'm going to use this as an example, whether you agree with it or not, one of the reasons the Ron Paul Revolution was so successful is because the organizers did not go out and try to run everything. They let a grassroots movement grow. And if we let a grassroots movement grow at the NDAA, and anyone listening to this can go to canadaunite.org and get the materials for yourself, and go to your local council and speak out. Go to your county commission, speak out. Put Canada stickers on light bulbs, speak out. Do whatever you want to spread the message of anti-NDAA, and if we get enough grassroots folks doing that, this will fall and the pyramid will collapse because the center of gravity will have been shifted, and you will break the system from the bottom instead of from the top, so that we can restore this country to constitutional governance and to a way where we can actually protect the rights of people instead of our government continually violating them.
So that's an awesome plan, and for anyone who's listening to this conversation, like Dan is saying, you can go to pandaunite.org and you look at the About Us tab, and then under About Us there's another little section called Our Strategy. And if you look at Our Strategy, it outlines 4 points that basically sums up what Dan just said. Establish a team, begin lobbying, hold the public officials accountable, and introduce the bill and then hold the public officials accountable. So this sounds like a great way to do things without having to throw chairs through windows or set stuff on fire.
Exactly, it really is.
Much more effective.
We have a duty. I have several favorite figures, and not all of them, I swear, are old white guys. Actually,
I'm sick of the old white guys too, man. They're disgusting.
I really respect. I consider myself more toward a Patrick Henry style. I really respect Patrick Henry, and he talks about the next gale, next sound we will hear is the resounding of clashing arms from north. Well, we are not in a violent battle, and myself and other leaders in the Liberty Movement have been doing everything we can to keep us from going into a violent battle. And the way we can win is we withdraw consent and refuse to allow the federal government to infringe and the state government to infringe on the rights of the people of that county, that city. Once you do that, that is important. And I want to pull a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., who's one of my favorite civil disobedience activists. And he said that one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws, and an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust, and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its justice, is in reality expressing the highest respect for the law. We're combating lawlessness. We're not combating a law. This is not a law. It's unconstitutional. It's null and void. We're combating lawlessness, and if you can show your elected official, that you can show your sheriff that you're combating that and get him to stand up and say, I will not allow this to happen here, that's the way you push back, and that's the way you force Congress and the president into a corner they can't get out of.
So are you afraid that maybe you're going to be detained because you're working so hard against it? Like, do you have nightmares of the military smashing in your door and throwing a bag over your head? And you wake up, like, with a feeding tube in you, and they're like... And there's army guys that are making dogs, like, do weird stuff to you?
What?
I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Sure, there's fear. There's always fear, but that's what laws are designed to do. Not only are they designed to be effective, but if laws do not strike fear into the populace, they're very little effective than they are if they strike that fear. I refuse to pray because I've accepted that the fate of me not standing up is worse than if I stand up. I want to be able to look at a young child who hasn't lost their innocence yet, who's just learning about the world around them. I want to be able to look at the young child, and I want to be able to look them in the eyes, and I want to be able to tell them, you're free. I can't do that right now. There's no freedom for there's no freedom. I don't have any kids, you're going to have kids. But there's no freedom for anyone's children coming up. There's no freedom for anyone's grandchildren, and the alternative to me standing up first. So is there fear? Yes. Is there a possibility they doing that right now? Is there a possibility they could be planning a raid tonight? Absolutely. But if I don't accept that now, and I don't stand up now, there's a guarantee it's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
Right on, man. For sure. Does anyone else have any questions for him?
Lost all of my questions.
You've been.
Yeah, he's answered all of them. He's been very
I know, dude. You've been so thorough. We don't even really have too many more questions in the studio here.
Stop that.
All right. Well, I'd like to ask just a little personal question then. So,
Yeah.
when did it become important to you to get involved in this thing? And was there a moment of like an epiphany when you said, you know, I think I'm going to do something? Or was it a gradual sort of thing, or what? How did this work?
As any college student would, I was procrastinating homework.
Nice.
And I was using a little thing we like to call Stumble Upon. And I came across a video, and it said 63 senators betrayed you today. This is back around Thanksgiving 2011. And I remember sitting there watching that video and going, you have got kidding me. In America? In America this is happening in my country, the land of the free and home of the brave? I mean, my roommate walked in, I figured he had to hear me sit butter for like a half hour sitting there in front of that video. It's only like 3 minutes long. Sitting there in front of that video going and watching it over and over and over and over again because I studied Nazi Germany. I studied the rise and fall of the Third Reich, the rise and fall of Imperial Japan. And this is exactly what, this is line by line, word for word. If you take the Patriot Act and NDAA, they equal the Reichstag fire decree passed in 1933 by Hitler's Germany. I mean, when you see that type of stuff, when I saw that, I cannot let this happen in my country while I'm around because I know what it leads to. And so that was my epiphany. It was watching that YouTube video and realizing that all was not as it seemed. I was fooled. I'm somewhat embarrassed by this, but I was a Newt Gingrich fan coming into this. and so that's my background. An absolute war hawk, absolute pro-Patriot Act, pro-surveillance, pro-state, everything like that. And seeing that video, it shocked. It made me realize there's something else here that we're not being told. There's something the corporate media, the Fox News, MSNBC, they're not telling us the truth. They're two sides of the same coin. And when I realized that, when I watched that video, that was the epiphany moment.
Yeah.
Do you think Barack Obama polishes his Nobel Peace Prize with blood? Do you think he uses blood and a rag to polish that Nobel Peace Prize?
Well,
or is it blood and like dried baby skin from an Iraqi that he napalmed in Fallujah?
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as I mean, I personally think that he's not the man making these decisions. That's all funny. He doesn't have the type of money to finance a war. So you have to kind of look at the man behind I mean, I think the Nobel Peace Prize is kind of like the Pulitzer Prize. I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware of what the original Pulitzer Prize was named after, but the Pulitzers were the people who were the fathers of yellow journalism. And they were the people who published that the Maine was blown up by the Spanish and got the United States war. And we give out a prize for integrity in journalism with their name on it.
Well, the Nobel Prize.
Value.
The Nobel Prize is named after a guy that, figured out how to make TNT efficient.
Right.
So go ahead.
Exactly. So, I mean, I have a question on my end to you guys at this point, and to your listeners, really. Something to keep in mind. We are looking for someone to lead a team in Arkansas. We have about 30 states where we have people leading anti-NDAA teams, and if any of your listeners want to join up, they can go to the website. If you guys think that you're interested in owning or running and starting to get going a anti-NDAA state team in the state of Arkansas, I mean, we're looking for something down there. So if you guys know people who are ready to step up to the plate, we're ready to rock and roll.
I can stick it up on our website, see if we can get any hits on that.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely publicize that, and thank you for the information. We're gonna for sure consider that, man, because we agree with you.
This is such an important issue.
Yeah, this is super important.
It's something that everyone in this room is pretty passionate about too, because some of us have gotten our FBI files, and just because of our involvement with the protest with Occupy, some of us have been labeled suspected terrorists. I'm pretty sure, Adam, if you've got yours, I know it's on mine, it's probably on Greg.
They wouldn't give me mine.
Putting up a tent in a parking lot is an act of terrorism these days.
Right.
Yeah, no, I never got my FBI profile back. They said they had nothing on me.
Greg's head.
Well, I guarantee they do, because a report released by the Department of Homeland Security 2 days after Panda was founded and 31 days after the NDAA went into effect, I quote, "These are potential terrorists according to this Homeland Security report you can find on our website under Who is Terrorist. Under the START report, and I quote, "Those who are reverent of individual liberty, suspicious of centralized federal authority, and believe in conspiracy theories that threaten national sovereignty and or personal liberty."
Right. And the FBI handbook, I believe, still says that a domestic terrorist, in the description, a low-level domestic terrorist is a protest group.
Yeah, so George Orwell's rolling around in his grave, and everyone in this radio studio is guilty of thought crime.
Pretty much.
Well, I mean, just remember, you're in good company, because in 1738, the British government published a list of the top 10 things they were worried about for their country. One of those things was terrorism. Several years later, who were the terrorists?
Yeah.
Well, I think I was going to say, Dan, do you think that all this nice little euphemisms for saying the public is now the enemy, or number one enemy, instead of finding the public enemy number one? How do you feel of being a public citizen or a public person, you being told by your government that you're an enemy? How do you feel about that?
Did you hear that question there, Dan?
I did not. I heard there was a question, I just didn't hear the question.
What Chris asked, it seems as though the government is saying that the public is enemy number one, as opposed to searching for public enemy number one. And how do you feel personally about being put in that box as well?
The word terrorist is going to be an inherently political word. It always will be. It is causing an emotional reaction called terror in someone for political reasons. It's always going to be a politically charged word. But I think the word is useless. I'm being put in that category. I mean, if you're not on the government watch list by now, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It goes to illustrate the danger of giving your government the power to define anything. And I don't care if it's marriage, I don't care if it's terrorism, I don't care what it is. Giving your government the power to define anything will be used and abused for political purposes and for tyrannical purposes, as we see with the NDAA, as we see with word terrorism. What we have to get back to in America is you get a trial or proven guilty. Period. Non grata. Everyone has rights, or no one has rights. There's not
Absolutely.
some people have rights, some people don't. Just because you're a terrorist doesn't mean they can give you or take away rights. Our Congress is so arrogant that they said when the NDAA was trying to be amended by Representative Justin Amash, our Congress said that this amendment would give terrorists rights. They have no right to take rights from suspected terrorists, and they have no right to give them. Everyone has rights, or no one has rights. If we get back to the Bill of Rights and the document that enshrines the protection of our rights in this country, that's the way we're going to turn back the tide. Otherwise, they're going to say, oh, the Filipinos, they're dangerous, or oh, the Japanese are dangerous, or oh, the Muslims are dangerous. And so always pick a group and say, this group has less rights than you. And it's once we start rejecting that any group has less rights than we do, then we kill all this youth nonsense about terrorism and domestic terrorism and extremists and all this stuff. You cannot give government that power.
If we're being completely honest, though, it's not a race that is, or a country really that is has less rights than us. It's whoever has the oil.
And you may very well be right about that.
You're a terrorist if you want to stand in the way of our government having free access to that oil that somehow got under their sand.
And
Yeah, how did our oil get under their sand?
What?
That's a tangent. I'm just joking. So, dude, thank you so much for coming on. We're about out of time for you. We got to start wrapping the show up. Do you have anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with who are out there, who are tuned in? What do you want to say to the world, sir?
First of all, it's been awesome to be on because I've never had a host or a bunch of hosts who were as high energy as I was. It's amazing.
Right on.
But secondly, what I must stress, everyone listening to this interview, and you will hear this in the future because this will not be the first time you hear me. This will not be the last time you hear me, for sure. However, something I need to stress to you. Benjamin Disraeli, former British Prime Minister, coined what we call the cycle of the body politic. It is a cycle that every country goes through that predicts when a country will rise and when a country will fall. This cycle from rise to fall takes 250 to 300 years on average. America's 250th year is 2026. We're right there. I need you to understand how important this is. The cycle says we fall. There are two things in America that we can use to break that cycle that were never before existed in any country with this cycle in place. That is, number one, a free and open internet, where there is instantaneous communication between people, and we can learn things our government does not want us to know. Protect the internet, everything you have. If you lose the internet, you will lose your liberty. I will go as far as that. If we lose the internet, we lose our liberty. And second, there is the resistance in America to tyranny there was not in any other country before there was widespread violence. It's here. So get off your couch and magnify the resistance. If you don't stand up now when you have these resources, will you be able to stand up later? If you don't stand up now, when will you stand up? Stand now, take action for your rights and for your liberties, and for the million American lives who died in foreign soil and shed their blood believing that they were protecting liberties here in America. You need to protect those liberties or you're spitting on their grave and you're spitting on the lives of the children in our future. I don't mean to be dramatic, I mean to be serious with you. This is how countries fall, is when the people, the good men do nothing. That's when people prevail. So get off your couch and do something, whether it's against the NDAA, you can join us in this fight, or whether it's against the Patriot Act, whether it's against drones. Stop the surveillance state, stop the NDAA, protect your liberty for your children and for your grandchildren so we have a country that we can.
Ladies and gentlemen of Arkansas and the Midwest, Dan Johnson of Panda People Against NDAA. You can find out more about this awesome effort at pandaunite.org. That's pandaunite.org. Dude, you have me so fired up right now. I'm going to play a little Gil Scott-Heron while we chill out for a minute. and segue into our last couple of moments. Dan, thank you for coming on, man. You're awesome.
Thank you for having me on, guys.
Right on.
Solidarity, brother. If you are out there listening to Radio Land and you're just tuning in, this is KBF 88.3, Voice of the People, not the sheeple. And this is Occupy Little Rock Radio. I am your host, Adam Lansky. We've got Caitlin Lott, Chris Nielsen, Mel, your off-color commentator. A couple special guests in the house, Anna and Misha. Anyways, we got just a couple more announcements here before we clock out and make way for the next show coming on. So, guys, go right ahead.
All right, we've got No War Against Syria is going to be doing protests and marches throughout the nation to all the way to the end of the month. That's right. No War in Syria is asking Congress to go to Syria. That's right. We want the Congress to go to Syria and find out why they need not to go to war. That's right. We also have the September 17th, or hashtag S17 is coming up. We have also October 15th for Occupy and October 19th for Occupy. Zuccotti Park has already been retaken. They'll inter-occupy, as well as Occupy Evolve OWS is actually announcing more and more dates for protests against Wall Street. You have also March Against Monsanto, Idle No More, and tar sands having actions coming up throughout the month. Please make sure to check your news feeds for the local protests. Mayflower is going to be having another town hall meeting next week. They're going to get more information about Mayflower oil spill. Along with that, we will also have an October 15th and October 19th. Those are very special days. Those are global Occupy marches. We also have a persisting action for Russian LGBT rights going on throughout all the Russian consulates. Please, if you want to stand up for LGBT rights, please show up to the Russian consulates and show your support. Moving on to Caitlin.
We've also got a gay rights protest right here in Little Rock on October 5th. This was started by Trey Weir and Jennifer Pierce. You guys are awesome. It'll be, okay, like I said, October 5th. Let's see, line up at 1 p.m. at the 4th and Ferry Park. Yes, Pride Parade. Sorry. Wow, I'm off today. Anyway, the Pride Parade, that's right. Starts at 1 p.m. at the 4th and Ferry parking lot that we occupied for quite a while, and that's October 5th.
I needed to add a couple of more things. We have a Million Mass March on D.C. Anonymous will be Million Mass Marching on D.C. We also have the March Against Monsanto at St. Louis happening this month, next month, in November. Please check March Against Monsanto for local as well as the corporate headquarter march. They're still wanting to go ahead against Monsanto.
People, the weather is fixing to cool off. The marching season begins.
Let's go.
And if you were, just like Dan Johnson said, if you were on your couch, you are still asleep. Brothers and sisters, this is Occupy Little Rock Radio on KBF 88.3 FM. Voice of the people, not the sheeple. Stay tuned.
Yeah.